Roger Ballen is an American photographer known for his documentary fiction style. He uses props and places his subjects on sets, and the resulting pictures blur the line between photography and theatre. Now, for the first time, a retrospective in Istanbul is paying homage to Ballen's unique style. Miranda Atty reports.
Visceral, disturbing, a study in contradictions. These are carefully composed images from a man who was never supposed to be a photographer. Roger Ballen began his career as a geologist. His work took him to the South African countryside, where, armed with his camera, he set out to explore the country's remote towns.
The fact that he was doing all these field trips to different areas in South Africa was very important in having access to things that he might not have otherwise visited. So I think that played a very important role in him developing a visual oeuvre in that sense.
Ballen was born in New York in 1950, but he's lived in Johannesburg since the early 80s. And while his photos began as documentation of marginalised poor whites, they soon became more theatrical. He refers to his own work as Ballenesque, or documentary fiction. Visitors to the Istanbul Modern can now see the development of his career at a retrospective of his work.
Photography, in a way, is always fictional because obviously you're choosing to document a certain moment. So even when you're working in a documentary where you're focusing on something, you're relating to your subject, you're maybe making eye contact. So in that sense, there's always your presence as an author in there. But I think what he means in this particular sense is that then becomes a little bit more fictional over time, where he's, talking to his subjects, it seems like, and he's making them do things and he's making them use props. So in that sense, there's a theatrical aspect in his work. So I think that's maybe the transition in his work.
And you talk about the theatrics, and we can kind of see this cast of characters that I suppose sort of evolve over his work. How did he choose these people, and how has the relationship developed?
I think the way I see this relationship develop is like he definitely, you can relate him to the art historic tableau vivant idea, where you have basically it's a living theater and it's a living structure that you see in front of you. And then it seems like he's able to time, and the theatrical time, I think, is a very important aspect in that sense. Like, you can see that it's not just something that happened for a moment, but it's something that basically was happening, and then you see a snapshot of it. So I think in that sense, the theatrical aspect is definitely there.
Ballen's work has become more fantastical over his 30-year career. But throughout it all, he's shot using the same camera, a Rolleiflex, and every single photograph is black and white.
Ballen's later work is no longer what he called documentary fiction. In this series, Asylum of the Birds, he's blurred the lines between fantasy and reality, and he's introduced sculpture and collage to create a kind of set for his photography.
Ballen's use of the same people as subjects time and again has drawn some critics who wonder if it's exploitation. But he's always defended his relationships with those he snaps. Now though, human faces are appearing less in Ballen's work as he moves towards the abstract. Indeed, for this retrospective, he even put down the camera to give some insight into his compositions. This installation, just like his portraits, is slightly off-kilter and grotesque, but it's also entirely Ballenesque. Miranda Atty, TRT World, Istanbul.
And now we're joined on the showcase set by Dimit Yildiz, who's the creator of that exhibition. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
So you've actually met Roger Ballen.
Yes.
Tell me more. What's he like?
Actually, he's one of the, as you know, he's one of the most important photographers of his generation. So, of course, I was super excited before I met him. And throughout the preparation of the exhibition, we corresponded to each other like multiple times, maybe like, 5 times a day. But like, meeting him was actually divine. At the same time, he's like very experienced photographer, and he's been into shows like throughout many countries, and like thousands of exhibitions he took part. So he exactly knew what he wanted to do with the exhibition. But at the same time, he's such a great figure that he allows you to create your own show. So that we had this conversations back and forth throughout the preparations, but he let me have my own show at the same time. So it was great. And what we had like during our preparations, we discussed about everything, like which photographs and images we're gonna include in the show, what kind of a plan we're gonna have, and what kind of an installation we're gonna have. And that was like one of the most rewarding experiences of my entire career, I guess.
I mean, when you look at the images, they're compelling, but they're also they're disturbing, but like I said, they're compelling, they draw you in.
Yeah.
What's it like looking at them repeatedly?
I believe my own experience with his images are very much in parallel of those audiences. Like people come and go to the show and repeatedly say, we have to come back and we have to see it again. That was exactly my experience with his images, I guess. At first, I had an impression, and then second time, third time, we always had this, I don't know, whenever you look at his pictures, there's another layer that opens up with his images, I think. So that's why I learn a lot, I guess, each time I look at his pictures.
And he is controversial. I mean, some people say he's kind of taken advantage of some of the people in his work. What do you think about that?
These people are actually what Roger Ballen tries to do is to reflect a society, and from the beginning of his career, to reflect a society in turbulence, starting from 80s. But at the same time, I mean, through some other, after the 90s, let's say, he started to take his subjects indoors and he started interact with them. So I believe that he is like a director of a theater or a film. So he doesn't tell them what to do, but he inspires them, and they are cooperating with with him and try to create some some scenes. But I believe the strength of his pictures are not, as you say, like not that he's taking advantage or anything, but he gives them a chance to speak for themselves, and he also questions what is normal, what is abnormal for the photography, because he doesn't believe in that. So he gives those people a chance to speak for themselves and to act, to cooperate with them. So I believe he gives them a chance to open up their potential. So I believe it's a great collaboration. I don't think it's like a taking advantage.
No problem.
Yeah.
And there's a physical installation as part of this exhibition. Yes. Can you tell me more about that?
Actually, that's one of the most exciting parts of this exhibition, because Roger had this series, like 7 series that we have in the exhibition, and he also wanted to have this installation. He has this installation thing going on like for such a long time with his exhibitions. But the thing is, it's a site-specific exhibition, so it wasn't brought like the other pictures taking part in the show. We have to find all those bits and pieces in Istanbul. So at the start, we had an idea what it's going to look like, but we didn't know what we're going to find or what we're going to be able to find in Istanbul. So we made this extensive research within the flea markets of Istanbul. There are some flea markets, so like it used to be a thing of the past, but now there are still some flea markets, and we researched, and a couple of days before the exhibition, he came over, and we visited those flea markets again. At the end of the day, we found this very old material, dilapidated material from an old pavilion in Caddebostan. So those are the things like lamps and, you know, a bed and like an ironing table and little mannequins. And we found these stuff together, and then we brought them together and brought them to the museum. So it was, I think, most exciting part of the exhibition, because we didn't know what to expect in the end. So it was, I believe it's the most surprising part of the exhibition for the audience as well.
And I cannot wait to see it. Thank you so much for joining us on Showcase. Thank you.